Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We're going to be unpacking a geographical mystery drawn straight from historical records and modern research. That is, well, it's just unbelievable. If you're the kind of person who loves unraveling the unknown, you're definitely in the right place today. Because we are looking at a phenomenon that literally challenges reality itself. We're talking about landmasses that simply shouldn't exist, yet stubbornly refuse to be ignored.
Section 1, The Impossible Sighting, a Bizarre Phenomenon.
I want you to picture this scenario for a second. Imagine you're an explorer, you're sailing on a perfectly glassy ocean, completely clear horizon. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, an uncharted island just appears. There are no people, no lights, no signs of life whatsoever. You actually get off the boat, you step onto its shore, feeling the solid ground right there beneath your boots. But when you return the very next day, the island is completely gone. It hasn't just shifted or moved, it has vanished without a single trace.
Sounds totally impossible, right? Like a literal ghost story? And hey, you have every right to be highly skeptical of a giant disappearing landmass. Yet, when we look at the source material, it reveals that for centuries, seasoned sailors from all around the world have reported exactly this bizarre phenomenon. Mysterious islands appearing out of thin air, and then just vanishing without any logical explanation. So this isn't just one isolated tall tale we're talking about. It's an actual global pattern.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds historically. Way back in the 15th and 16th centuries, explorers sailing the vast Atlantic started officially recording these vanishing islands. One of the most famous examples actually documented on old maps was called High Brazil, plotted just west of Ireland. Sailors reported seeing these towering mountains rising straight up from the sea, but completely shrouded in this thick, heavy mist. The local lore stated that this island followed a really mysterious 7-year cycle, becoming visible only once every 7 years. And the most chilling part of the whole thing? When countless sailors tried to land there, the island was said to disappear the very moment they got close.
Section 2, Legends of Hidden Lands, Behind the Fog. So what happens when we actually look past that mist? What did these sailors claim was hiding behind the magical fog of these ghostly landmasses? Well, the few who claim to have successfully reached the shores brought back stories that frankly border on the unbelievable. They didn't just describe an empty, barren rock. They described stepping into these perfectly silent forests. They reported encountering highly unusual animals that you couldn't find anywhere else on Earth. They even claimed to have walked among ancient, massive stone structures that looked unlike any known human architecture. And, maybe most astonishingly, they spoke of meeting mysterious people who possessed incredible, highly advanced knowledge. Which naturally brings us to the ultimate question here. Were these stories actually real? Or, are we simply looking at the wild imaginations of exhausted sailors suffering after agonizingly long months at sea? Well, it's time to dive straight into the rational, modern, scientific investigation of all this. Section 3. The science behind the mystery. Modern explanations.
So the crucial point in this scientific explanation is something called a superior mirage. Scientists today believe that many of these historical sightings can be pretty neatly explained by this really fascinating optical illusion. Basically, it happens under very rare, specific weather conditions, where layers of air at different temperatures severely bend the light rays. And this totally tricks the human eye, making distant, actual landmasses appear to float entirely above the ocean, like right in front of a ship. So it's a trick of the light, sure, but an incredibly convincing one.
It's super fascinating to contrast these two completely different perspectives. On one hand, we have the mythological claims of the sailors, right? The magical fogs, the hidden worlds, alternate dimensions. And then on the flip side, we have our modern scientific explanations, optical illusions, bent light, and incredibly rare weather conditions. And hey, we aren't taking sides here. We're just looking at how human understanding of the world has evolved over time to try and explain the unexplainable. But as much as we all love a clean, tidy, scientific answer, the superior mirage theory simply doesn't cover every single report in the historical record. There are some pretty crucial gaps. Like, we have documented sightings of vanishing islands coming from entirely different geographic locations, where those specific weather conditions just don't make any sense. We even have reports describing the exact same mysterious island, appearing to completely different crews literally decades apart. So, if it isn't always a mirage, what else could it be?
Section 4. Other intriguing theories. Alternative explanations.
Since science does leave a few doors cracked open, there are other really fascinating alternative theories out there attempting to bridge that gap between ancient myth and modern reality.
First up, some researchers suggest these could actually be remnants of lost civilizations, just temporarily revealed before being swallowed up by nature again. Second, and this one is maybe a bit more scientifically grounded, is the idea of highly active volcanic islands that violently rise to the surface of the ocean for just a brief period before structurally collapsing and sinking right back beneath the waves. And finally, we have the truly mysterious ideas that these places might literally exist in another dimension entirely, only overlapping with ours and becoming visible under the absolute rarest of conditions. Now, to be clear, there is absolutely zero definitive proof for these theories, but man, the stories just stubbornly persist.
Section 5. The Unanswered Questions. The Modern Reality.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second to the broader reality of the world we actually live in today. We live in an era where modern satellites in orbit have meticulously mapped nearly every single square inch of the Earth's surface, right? We literally have the whole world mapped out in our pockets. Yet, despite all this cutting-edge technology, sailors today still occasionally report encountering unexplained objects and completely bizarre landforms that seemingly vanish without a single trace. How is that even possible in our modern, fully mapped world? Well, this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the mystery continues today. Just take a look at this staggering data point. 80% of our deep sea remains completely unexplored. 80%. Think about that. For all our satellites, all our advanced technology, the overwhelming majority of our very own planet's ocean is still this dark, uncharted frontier that just continues to hide countless secrets. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to conclude our explainer today. When we look out at the water, what are we really seeing out there? Are these vanishing islands simply tricks of the light and clever optical illusions? Are they forgotten pieces of human history briefly rising from the depths? Or is there something far stranger waiting beneath the waves, just out of our sight? It's a pretty humbling reminder that sometimes the absolute greatest mysteries on Earth are the ones that no one can fully explain. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible topic today. And hey, keep your eyes on the horizon.